There are moments in life that change everything forever. A single act of kindness, given when no one else is watching, can rewrite not just one life, but two. This is the story of a woman who had nothing but gave everything, and a man who had more than he could ever want, but had lost all hope. Everyone thought he was lost until she found him. Marigold was a 27-year-old waitress. She was just returning from work when heavy rain began to fall. Exhausted and drenched, she noticed a frail old man slumped against a broken bench by the roadside, barely conscious, shivering, and ignored by everyone else. His clothes were drenched and tattered, his face pale, his breathing shallow. No one else stopped. A couple passed by, glanced over, then hurried on. A taxi driver rolled past without even slowing down, but Marigold couldn't walk away. Instead, she rushed to help. She crouched beside him, touching his shoulder gently. "Sir, sir, can you hear me?" He didn't respond. Her heart raced. She attempted to carry him but was unable to do so due to the old man's weight and weakness. She then used her last money to call an ambulance. Then she waited. Rain poured harder now, soaking her completely. She held his head in her lap, whispering words of comfort, hoping he could hear her. "Stay with me," she said. "You're not alone anymore." The ambulance finally arrived. Paramedics loaded him onto a stretcher. One looked at Marigold and asked, "Are you family?" "No," she replied. "I just found him." They shrugged and wheeled him inside. "I'm coming too," she said firmly, stepping in behind them. The ride was silent. When they reached the hospital, nurses barely spared the old man a glance. One muttered something about another homeless case. But Marigold stood tall. "He needs help," she insisted. "Please." They took him in. Hours passed. Exhausted, cold, and hungry, but unable to leave, Marigold sat in the waiting area, staring at the floor, replaying the moment she found him. "Why did I stop? Because someone should have stopped for my father." Finally, a nurse came out. "He's stable. You can see him if you want." She stepped into the room. The old man's eyes fluttered open. They were soft, tired, but full of something, gratitude. "You saved me," he whispered. Marigold smiled gently. "No one deserves to die alone like that." He tried to speak again, but fatigue pulled him under. She stayed the whole night, holding his hand. The next morning, she returned with warm food, fresh clothes, and medicine the doctor had recommended. She missed work, didn't care. He needed her. Day after day, she came. Nurses began to notice not just the man's recovery, but hers, how she never asked for anything, never wanted credit, just showed up quietly with kindness in her heart. Then one morning, the old man was gone. Vanished, bed empty, no note, no goodbye. Marigold searched everywhere. The staff said nothing. The police shrugged. It was like he'd never been there. Heartbroken, she went back to her tiny apartment, back to her hard life, back to waiting tables, smiling through exhaustion, until the news hit. Long-lost billionaire Edward Arthur reappears after months missing, rescued by an unknown woman. Photos filled the screen, not of the frail old man she found in the rain, but a sharp, elegant man in a tailored suit, once one of the most powerful figures in the world. And suddenly, everything made sense, and nothing did. The headlines wouldn't stop. Edward, missing for over 6 months, had returned. And now the world was obsessed. Conspiracy theories flooded elderly man, but a sharp, elegant man in a tailored suit, once one of the most powerful figures in the world. And suddenly, everything made sense, and nothing did. The headlines wouldn't stop. Edward, missing for over 6 months, had returned. And now the world was obsessed. Conspiracy theories flooded the internet. Some said he'd been kidnapped. Others claimed he staged his disappearance for tax evasion or some twisted publicity stunt. But one question burned brighter than the rest: who is the woman who saved him? Reporters swarmed the hospital. They grilled nurses, scanned security footage, offered rewards, but no one could find her. Marigold had never given her name. She had simply come, helped, and disappeared back into the shadows of her quiet life. And she didn't know any of this. She was too busy trying to forget. Back at the diner, she wiped tables with tired hands, pretending the weight in her chest wasn't grief. She told herself it was better this way. He was gone. Probably never even remembered her name. Then came the knock on her door. It was late. Rain had started again. She opened the door slowly and found two men in dark suits standing outside. Their presence was calm but firm, like they already knew she wouldn't say no. "Ms. Marigold?" one asked. She nodded, confused. "We have something for you," the other said, offering a sealed envelope. Her hands trembled as she opened it. Inside was a single letter. "Dear Marigold, you didn't save a billionaire. You saved a broken man who had lost faith in humanity. Thank you for restoring it. I needed to disappear, not just from the world, but from myself. I wanted to see if kindness still existed when there was nothing to gain. And you proved it does. Come see what your kindness built. With gratitude, Edward Arthur." The men stepped aside, revealing a sleek black car waiting by the curb. "Whenever you're ready," one said gently. Marigold stared at the letter, then at the car, then at her tiny apartment filled with second-hand furniture and fading dreams. She packed only a small bag. The drive was silent. Through winding roads and towering gates, the city faded behind them until they arrived at a place so grand, so breathtaking, that Marigold barely believed it was real. A sprawling estate nestled among green hills, surrounded by fountains, gardens, and golden light pouring from every window. At the entrance stood Edward, not the frail old man she had held in her arms in a cold hospital room, but not entirely the powerful figure from the news either. He looked peaceful. As she stepped out of the car, he walked toward her, smiling warmly. "You came," he said. "I didn't know where I was going," she replied. "You always did the right thing, even when no one was watching." They stood face to face, the past and the present colliding in silence. Then he whispered, "Now let's make sure the world sees what kindness looks like." Inside the Grand Estatimu, Marigold felt like she had stepped into another world. Chandeliers sparkled above, marble floors gleamed beneath her worn shoes, and every corner whispered of wealth and legacy. But Edward didn't lead her through the luxury halls to show off. He led her to a room filled with people, families, children, volunteers, doctors, each smiling with hope. On the walls were photos of food drives, medical camps, and education programs, all under one name. "This is yours," Edward said softly. "It was always meant to be." Marigold's eyes welled up. "I never asked for anything," she said. "I know," he replied. "That's why you deserve everything." The next day, Marigold went to her small, humble home where she grew up. Her mother sat in her usual chair, knitting by the soft glow of an old lamp. She looked up and gasped. "Mari." Her eyes lit up. "Is that really you?" Marigold smiled wide and rushed to her, kneeling in front of her chair. "Yes, Mama," she said, eyes glistening. "It's me." Her mother pulled her into a tight embrace, rocking gently. Marigold laughed through tears. "Mama, so much has happened." And there, on that worn-out couch, she told her everything: how she found the old man in the rain, how she helped him without knowing who he was, how he vanished, and how he came back, not just as a billionaire, but as a man changed by her kindness. Her mother clapped her hands together, eyes shining. "Oh my Lord, I knew this day would come. I just knew it." They held each other, laughing and crying, overwhelmed with joy. "I never stopped believing in you, my daughter," her mother said softly. "Even when life was hard, I knew God had something greater for you." Marigold leaned her head on her mother's shoulder. "I didn't forget where I came from, Mama. This new life, it means nothing if I don't bring light back to the place that raised me." Her mother kissed her forehead. "You've done more than that, my daughter. You've made your father proud. You've made me proud." And in that tiny house filled with love, two hearts rejoiced, not just for how far Marigold had come, but for who she had remained. Marigold became the heart of the foundation. She traveled, spoke, helped build schools, fed thousands, and inspired millions. But more than that, she found something she thought she'd lost long ago: belonging. Edward, now healthier than ever, watched proudly as the woman who once knelt in the rain beside a dying stranger transformed into a beacon of compassion. And slowly, something else began to grow, something unexpected. Daniel, Edward's son, was everything his father had raised him to be: grounded, principled, and fiercely loyal. He had spent months searching for Edward during his disappearance, torn between fear and frustration. When he finally learned the truth, that his father had chosen to vanish to test humanity, he was stunned, even more so when he met her. Marigold and Daniel didn't fall in love at first sight. Theirs was a quieter kind of love, the kind that grows in shared silences, in late-night conversations about dreams and fears, in moments when neither needed words to understand each other. They bonded over small things, walking through the estate gardens after dinner, helping organize the foundation's first major outreach event, laughing over failed attempts at cooking together. One evening, as they sat beneath the stars on the estate's wide balcony, Daniel turned to her. "You changed my father," he said softly. She looked at him, surprised. "I just helped him when he needed it." "No," he replied. "You gave him back his faith. And mine, too." She smiled faintly. "I didn't come here looking for a new life." "I know," he said. "But sometimes life finds you when you're not looking." From then on, their bond deepened. They supported each other through every challenge the foundation faced, from skeptical donors to logistical hurdles. Together, they traveled to remote villages, bringing clean water, food, and education to places forgotten by the world. And with every step, Marigold felt herself changing, not losing who she was, but becoming more of it. Then came the day Daniel took her hand under the same sky where they'd shared their first real conversation. "Marry me," he whispered, eyes filled with sincerity. "Not because of what you did, not because of who your story made you, but because of who you are. Because I want to walk beside you always." Marigold looked at him, really looked, and saw not the life she once dreamed of, but the one she never knew she needed. "Yes," she said, smiling through tears. "Yes, I will." Their wedding was beautiful, not extravagant, but deeply meaningful. It wasn't held in a palace or covered in luxury. It was held in the garden of the estate, surrounded by people whose lives had been touched by kindness. Children laughed, and the air was thick with joy. Marigold's mother stood proudly among the guests, dressed in a simple but elegant dress Marigold had chosen for her. Edward stood beside them, watching his son and the woman who saved his life join hands forever. And as Marigold walked down the aisle, dressed not in white lace, but in a simple dress she chose herself, she thought of her father, of how he once told her, "Kindness is like a stone dropped in water. It ripples far beyond what you can see." She hadn't known then how true those words would become. Now, standing beside Daniel, she understood. Her ripple had become a wave. Years later, the Heart and Hope Foundation had grown beyond anyone's expectations. Schools built in rural areas, hospitals opened in forgotten towns, thousands of families lifted from poverty, all because one woman stopped in the rain to help a stranger. And every time Marigold stepped onto a stage, visited a village, or read a letter from a child who now had a future, she remembered that moment. She remembered the cold, the rain, the frail man on the sidewalk, and she smiled. Because sometimes the richest people are the ones who give everything when they have nothing left to give. And sometimes the smallest act of kindness can change the course of someone's life. True value isn't measured in money, but in how we treat others when no one is watching. Faith in humanity may fade, but it only takes one person to reignite it. Love doesn't come from status or wealth, it grows where compassion leads. Destiny doesn't knock loudly. Sometimes it walks quietly into your life, drenched in the rain. If this story touched your heart, don't keep it to yourself. Like, comment, and share this video with someone who needs a reminder that kindness is never wasted. And if you haven't already, subscribe to our channel, because sometimes the most powerful stories are the ones that remind us what it means to care. Thank you very much for watching. Until next time, please stay kind.